All right, hey folks, so today's video is going to focus on Mike Israetel and why, based on his latest pictures at 215 pounds, he's still at least 25 pounds away from being completely fat-free and ready to be on stage in winning shape. Now, over the course of this video, I want to start talking about open bodybuilding as a whole and the strategy that Mike is taking towards bodybuilding and why this is not working for Mike. Secondly, I want to just talk specifically about what he's doing and why that's causing the result he's getting. And thirdly, I want to make the case for why his training, the high volume RIR approach, is actually an integral part of this entire approach to bodybuilding with the drugs and with everything else, and how it's less about muscle stimulation and actually more about depletion and refilling and redistribution. Also, on that note, that will give us an insight into why bodybuilders are having such devastating health problems, because it's tied into this unique approach to bodybuilding, which is completely foreign to natural bodybuilding. And I'm going to end by just speaking about what Mike needs to do if he actually wants to come in shape and win a show. Right, guys, so let's start with looking at the modern era of larger but softer physiques. Like, mostly this is seen only in the open class. Really, what I'm speaking about started with Dorian. Dorian was known and almost blamed as the guy who introduced the mass era. And to a certain extent he was. You can see there was a notable shift in Dorian's physique from one year to the next, roughly halfway through his bodybuilding career, where he got a lot bigger, added a lot of stage weight. And this is generally when it was acknowledged he introduced a specific protocol to bodybuilding. Unfortunately, that is what resulted in not only a bigger physique, but also a softer one. We all know fundamentally that the modern era of bodybuilding, which has larger and larger physiques, is characterized by larger guts. Everything is getting bigger. And that wasn't traditional bodybuilding. Traditional bodybuilding was all about the differential between the waist and the shoulders and the arms, and really getting size in the peripheral regions, like the forearms, the calves, the upper arms, the legs, and not in the waist. And right up until the 80s and 90s, that's exactly what bodybuilding was. Now, when we had the introduction of this protocol that I'm about to explain, everything changed, everything flipped. And just to give you guys one more illustration, possibly one of the greatest bodybuilding physiques of all time, Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie was generally acknowledged as being either minimally enhanced or maybe even natural for a large portion of his career, and he spent a large portion of that career getting strong. Ronnie was phenomenally strong. But then look what happened. Inevitably, over the course of the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years of his competitive life, until the point he retired when he eventually lost to Jay Cutler, his physique was getting larger but softer. And you had that trademark look of the stomach getting bigger and the muscles getting smoother. There was no hard, dense granularity, the likes of which the 70s and 80s bodybuilders were known for. Really, the 80s and early 90s were the key period. Just prior to Dorian, you had these physiques which were just hard, dense, and grainy. Probably the 80s was the best time for this. And you just lost that the bigger the physiques got. They ended up getting larger and really round and lacking any significant detail. And now, the second part of this video is looking at the reasons why. What is happening? So the reasons are the approach to bodybuilding that these open competitive bodybuilders take and that Mike is taking is completely different to natural bodybuilding. It's because his entire system around bodybuilding is not designed to become fat-free for stage. It's not. It's not designed to actually become fat-free. It's designed to redistribute fat. We are looking at open bodybuilders who want to redistribute fat from the visible regions internally. And that's the beginnings of trying to understand why their approach to bodybuilding is so different, but also so tricky to get right on the day. Peaks very often go wrong. But I mean, for any of you guys who have actually been really lean and natural, you will know a peak week doesn't really mean much, doesn't add much. If you're actually in shape, peak weeks don't add much. But if you're enhanced and you are following this protocol that I'm about to explain, you have to get the peak week right. Otherwise, it can go drastically wrong. Because really, a lot of what you're doing is redistributing water and fat. So let's just begin with the drugs. The major player in this system of bodybuilding is growth hormone and insulin. Now, essentially, just to give you guys a bit of a brief sort of background on what growth hormone does, when you inject large amounts of growth hormone into your system, essentially, it acts as a fatty acid liberator. So it will liberate free fatty acids from your fat stores. So, you know, we all have stubborn fat stores, right? Like midsection, chest, lower back, love handles. We all have those stubborn areas. Now, what this does, it will liberate those free fatty acids from those stores and dump them into your bloodstream. This is what happens when you fast. When you fast, your growth hormone levels get higher so that you have energy to survive. It's a survival mechanism. But when you're taking lots of growth hormone, it's a little bit different. You have these free fatty acids as well as glycogen molecules circulating in your bloodstream all the time. Now, the second part of the protocol is the training. Now, have you ever wondered why, when you look at Mike Israetel's sets, they're not really hard? Like, they're not hard sets. They're not hard sets in the sense of what Dorian did, or even what Arnold did. No. Most of his sets look like a walk in the park. Even the ones where he's screaming his head off on the leg curl machine, they look easy. Because they're not supposed to stimulate muscle. Let me just say that again, because this is what blows your mind. Because again, what he's doing is not bodybuilding in the way that you and I know bodybuilding. He's not looking to stimulate muscle. He's looking to deplete free fatty acids and glycogen stores in his muscles. Resistance training, contractions against weight, no matter what the intensity, are going to deplete your glycogen stores and your free fatty acid stores in your muscles that are being trained locally. So you have the situation where you are constantly, due to the drugs, pushing all these free fatty acids into your bloodstream. And then you train and you create a sinkhole of glycogen and free fatty acids in those muscles. And so what happens is all of those free fatty acids and glycogen molecules, they get redistributed into the muscles. So essentially, this system of bodybuilding is not looking at getting you fat free. It's looking at redistributing the body fat. Now, why is it not looking at getting you fat free? Because then you'd lose size. Do you ever wonder why Mike still eats so much food, even at the tail end of a cut? It's so he doesn't shrink. Most open pro bodybuilders are walking around at 270, 260. They are 210 or 220 pound bodybuilders with an additional 40 to 50 pounds of body fat and water and glycogen in them due to the training protocol and the drugs. That's how this works. Do you see what I mean? The diet is not designed to get you fat free. The training is not designed to stimulate hypertrophy because you have the drugs to do that. The training is designed to deplete you. And the drugs are not only there to provide a stimulus to grow, but they're also there to liberate those fatty acids and involve themselves in this redistribution of body fat and glycogen into the muscles. This is why muscles and physiques of today are larger but softer. You look at the Open Pro bodybuilding winner this year, Derek Lunsford. Look at his arm definition. He looks like an off-season bodybuilder, but he won the Olympia. He has the genetics to pull this approach off. Mike doesn't. So the second point is that this entire system of bodybuilding rests on a very particular drug protocol and training protocol, which is not conducive to growing muscle, actual contractile myofibrillar muscle, the likes of which you and I want. And if you need any more convincing of that, why do you think Mike is so weak right now? We all saw that video he did a few weeks ago, which is the Navy SEALs fitness test. He managed a bench press of 240 pounds body weight for 3 reps. At that weight, in the peak off season, he should be incredibly strong, but he's not. And that's why he's failing. For most open pro bodybuilders who actually have talent and are actually good at bodybuilding and get this right, they usually train harder. And at the very least, they're maintaining their strength, even though they're not always expressing it. You know, the greatest bodybuilders of all time, your Kai Greens, your Jay Cutlers, your Dorian Yates, they were still extremely strong. They were able to bench press on the incline, 4 plates aside regularly. Mike struggles with 2 on a flat for a triple. The approach that he's taking, he doesn't have the genetics to pull it off. Really, this is why I say at the beginning of the video, I said he's still got at least 25 pounds to go to be fat free. If he got down to 180, 175, maybe at that stage he would be fat free. But really, as I'll explain later on, there's a lot more he can do to produce a much better and pleasing physique, which I think would suit his genetics a lot more. But anyway, the second point is, make no mistake, This system of bodybuilding, including the drug use and including the higher volume style of depletion training, is not meant to build muscle. This is not something you guys should be mimicking in terms of the training. This is a very particular approach for a very particular set and amount of drugs. And next, I want to just very briefly touch on the number of bodybuilding deaths in the industry. Bodybuilders are dropping left and right like flies, okay? God bless them, but they are. Now, are you starting to see why we don't see the equivalent rate of deaths in strongman or Olympic lifting or even sumo, for God's sakes, right? We don't, because a lot of bodybuilders are utilizing this approach. They are pumping themselves full of drugs. They're doing high volume training. They don't really want to do the hard and heavy training, which they need to do to carry on getting bigger and stronger, because it hurts. You know, when you're at that size, it bloody hurts, especially if you're trying to do it at Mike's age, because he's almost 40 now. So it's going to be very difficult for him to bench press or incline bench press 4 plates aside week in, week out. It's a lot of stress on the body. It's a lot easier to convince himself just to do 2 plates or less, or emphasize the stretch and pump himself full of more drugs. But make no mistake, that's not an approach that would work for you. I mean, it's barely an approach that works for him. He's going backwards. But it's the system that he's adopted of, it's just a different style of bodybuilding. I wouldn't even call it bodybuilding. It's just pharmacology. It's chemical warfare, essentially. So the reason that bodybuilders are dropping dead is, like I said earlier, we are looking at the redistribution of body fat. Most 260 pound open bodybuilders are 220 pound guys with 40 pounds of body fat on them. And you can see it a mile off because their stomachs are large as well as everything else. Their muscles don't look defined, even on stage day when they have a rigid six pack in certain poses. They just look soft. They're big, but they're soft because their entire system of bodybuilding is completely foreign to what you and I know of training, growing, eating to support that, and doing it all again. It's completely foreign from what I teach on this channel. Progressive overload in good form in the bodybuilding rep range. All of that's out the window. It's depletion, redistribution of fat and glycogen molecules to create this temporary, on-the-day illusion of low body fat alongside a dangerous diuretic protocol. That's the game that Mike's playing. Now, I want to just go on to the second part of this video, and that is explaining what Mike should do if he really wants to come in fat-free. So if I was coaching Mike, okay, cut the BS. You know what I'm about on this channel. Cut the BS. Let's actually get into shape. So specific recommendations, first of all, for training: volume, frequency, and intensity. Volume can come way down. Way down. I had a look on Mike's Instagram, and it looks like he's following roughly a 4-day training split. He's probably training body parts about 2 or 3 times a week, depending on how many sessions he's having per day. Okay, my recommendation would be that he can carry on training 6 days a week, no problem. Train a body part roughly twice per week. Now, in each of those sessions, I want him to do 3 sets per body part per session, equaling roughly 6 sets per muscle per week. He could even go as low as 2 sets per body part per session for a total of 4 sets per body part per week. So 4 sets of chest twice a week, 4 sets of quads twice a week. That would be plenty to preserve all his muscle mass alongside all the drugs he's taking. And in terms of intensity, go all out. Go as hard as you can while it's safe to do so. I would put good money on this. If he did that with the drug amounts he's taking, he would probably grow into the show. It would be his best chance of actually growing real contractile tissue. Now, he's going to lose overall size because that's the aim of what I'm talking about. I'm trying to get him fat free. So we're not looking to redistribute his body fat anymore. We're actually looking to get him fat free. And the second thing I would say to him is diet hard now. He doesn't seem to have a date in mind for his show. So I would say diet hard and fast. All of my clients, if they have a significant amount of body fat to lose, they start off dieting hard. He could quite simply do a PSMF approach 6 days a week. PSMF approach 6 days a week on his training days, and on the 7th day, rest, relax, and do a maintenance day. Full maintenance day, plenty of carbs, and just refuel a little bit, and just run that again and again and again, and get those initial 25 pounds off. Get down to 190 ASAP. He has that much body fat left to lose. He has. Now, he's going to get smaller because, again, he's actually starting to get lean. But alongside getting smaller, you're going to start to see a degree of separation in his physique. You look at his arms now, separation between his shoulders and triceps, it's nowhere to be seen. There's no separation there at all. It's just smooth and fat. He would start to get actual granularity in his physique with this approach. Now, once he's dropped those initial 25 pounds, that's where he settles in and digs in for the remaining, what could be 10 pounds, maybe 15. And that's when he would stop the PSMF approach 6 days a week and just start to diet a bit slower and just ease his way into it. That's where I would actually decrease his deficit, increase the amount of food so he can reduce the stress and he can sleep better, train harder, etc., etc. But all the while, the volume will be pretty low and the level of cardio doesn't need to be huge either because his diet will take care of most of it. Now, I just want to stress, this will involve the entire upheaval of his whole philosophy to bodybuilding. No longer is it going to be about drugs and redistributing body fat around his frame into the muscles and giving this impression of fake leanness on the day, which can so easily go wrong and you have to take diuretics with it. This will be actual bodybuilding where he loses body fat, he becomes fat free and he gets lean, hard and dense. That is the goal for bodybuilding. Now, I want to just end with talking about what you should do. Okay, how does this help you guys? Well, I think it helps you guys a lot. First of all, the big thing is the training that he's doing is so completely foreign from what you guys need to do. Make no mistake. The style of training he does is not suitable for dieting. It is not suitable for bulking. It's not. I've been calling out high volume BS all year. What you do need to do though is you need to train extremely hard. That's the first thing. There is no substitute for that. Training rewards how hard you can work, how well you can recover and get back and do it again. That's how training is done. Now, when you're not dieting and when you guys are in your off season, you're bulking, sure, you can get away with a bit more volume. But the goal isn't to do more volume for volume's sake. The goal is to train hard and get stronger. Because a larger muscle will always be a stronger one. You should be able to express more strength via more reps or more weight on the bar. Always, always. And then once that adaptation has occurred, you add more weight to drive further growth. So for you guys, what I'd recommend is really what I preach on this channel all the time. So my sort of catchphrase, say it with me, progressive poundages in a good bodybuilding rep range with consistent form. That is what matters. That's the only thing that matters. And if you keep your volume to the point where you are still able to progress, you're going to be fine. That's all you need. You just need enough volume to be able to see consistent progression. You don't need to have a huge amount of volume for added gains. You just need to do enough to grow because that is evidence what you did work. Don't be fooled by the high volume research, by the high volume studies. For the majority of you, they're not applicable. The average person watching this YouTube channel is a natural guy who is in the intermediate phase looking to just add some gains and get to the point where they look noticeably big and lean at the gym or on the beach. To do that, adopt my system of bodybuilding. Progressive poundages in good form in a bodybuilding rep range. That's all you need to remember. And hey, Mike, if you want to get coached for real, contact me. And for the rest of you, that is also what I do. I coach for a living. There is a link in the description. If you want to get in touch and get some actual real results, let's have a conversation. Let's see what I can do for you. All right, guys, I'll call it there. See you in the next one.